Hi and welcome, I'm Andy Mioch and you are watching A News. Here are the headlines. Belgium says it will recognize the Palestinian state and impose sanctions on Israel. Beijing set for a major military parade marking 80 years since the end of the Second World War. Rescue operations underway as death toll from earthquake in eastern Afghanistan exceeds 1,400. Thank you for tuning in. Belgium will join the group of countries that will recognize the state of Palestine at this month's UN General Assembly and will impose sanctions on Israel over the war in Gaza. Foreign Minister Maxime Prévost announced that recognition of Palestine would only be formalized if Hamas releases all remaining Israeli hostages and the group no longer has any role in managing Palestine. Belgium will also impose sanctions on the Israeli government, including a ban on importing products from illegal settlements, a review of public procurement policies with Israeli companies, and restrictions on consular assistance to Belgians living in illegal settlements. As tens of thousands of Israeli reservists started to report for duty ahead of a new offensive in Gaza City, families in the Strip are on the move, trying to find shelter.
Dozens of Palestinians fled the northern parts of Gaza City on Monday, seeking safety in the west near the sea, or moving south as Israeli tanks advanced. Vehicles were piled high with belongings, reflecting the desperate search for shelter amid escalating violence.
I want to find a place where I can stay with my sons and daughters. I don't know where to go. Moving out needs money. I cannot even find something to eat. It has been 2 months without food. No one is standing with the Palestinian people.
Israel is moving ahead with plans to take full control of Gaza City, aiming to weaken Hamas after nearly 2 years of conflict. Leaflets dropped over the city urged residents to head south, warning that the army intends to expand its offensive westward.
No, I won't move a bit from Gaza. We will remain in our land. This is our sacred land, and we will remain in it until the last drop of blood in us.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu convened his security cabinet Sunday to discuss the upcoming operation, which could take weeks to fully launch. Israel says it wants civilians evacuated before moving in more forces, but military officials warn the offensive could endanger hostages still held by Hamas.
European allies are pressing the US for firm backing before signing off on security guarantees for Ukraine. The French presidential palace says most of the technical work on the guarantees is nearly complete, including plans to strengthen Ukraine's armed forces and deploy an international reassurance force in non-contact zones. Leaders will meet later this week in Paris, with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky attending to confirm US support, considered crucial before European nations commit. While US President Donald Trump has ruled out sending troops, he has offered a backstop through intelligence sharing and air and missile cover.
It's very important because this is the only way to fix it. And by the way, I think
Now to Ukraine's Kharkiv, where the new school year has started in underground classrooms designed to protect children from Russian attacks. Officials say the facilities make it possible for thousands of pupils to safely return to in-person learning.
In Ukraine's northeastern city of Kharkiv, the first day of school this year looked unlike any other. Instead of walking into bright courtyards, children filed down staircases, 3 floors underground, to begin their studies in newly built classrooms designed to shield them from Russian attacks. Air raid sirens echoed above ground as lessons began below. For parents, the underground schools are more than classrooms, they are lifelines.
Today, my child, she is a first grader. She came to school for the first time, an underground school. Why have I, as a mother, decided to do this? Because the school is 3 floors down, we were told it is the deepest school in Kharkiv. That's why I believe it is safe. We did not expect it would be possible this year, but as a parent, I was desperate for my child to be able to attend normal physical school.
The school her daughter attends is in Nova Saltivka, one of Kharkiv's hardest hit neighbourhoods, and just a short distance from the Russian border. Here, the depth of the classroom matters as much as the curriculum. Mayor Ihor Terekov says the effort is historic.
Some 17,000 children will be able to attend school in person. This has never been possible since the start of the war. We have built 7 schools. These are proper schools, located underground. Apart from that, we have converted 6 metro stations into classrooms. Our children now have the opportunity to study in safe conditions. And we have further plans. We are in the process of building 3 more underground schools, which we hope to open on January 1st next year.
Despite the war, despite the sirens, children here are reclaiming one small piece of normal life, learning, laughing, and writing their futures deep underground.
French Prime Minister François Bayrou is trying to drum up support from parties in the National Assembly ahead of the no-confidence vote he faces next week. Bayrou met with allies from the presidential bloc, as well as the Place Publique, the Republicans, and the far-right National Rally to discuss his budget bill. Following the talks, National Rally senior officials called for a snap parliamentary election. Analysts expect Bayrou's government to fall on Monday, with both the far-right and left-wing parties vowing to vote against his minority administration. The France Unbowed party has announced it will propose the removal of President Emmanuel Macron from office following the no-confidence vote, the party's leader Mathilde Panot said. Panot wrote on social media that they will propose Macron's removal from office a day after the no-confidence vote. Panot criticized Macron for refusing to appoint a left-wing candidate as prime minister, despite the left-wing coalition's victory in the 2024 parliamentary elections.
Ce qui nous coûte trop cher dans des cadeaux aux plus riches et aux multinationales, nous ne serions pas dans cette situation qui est effectivement. Nous avons un président de la République.
Over in the U.S., a federal judge in California ruled that the Trump administration violated a 19th century law when it deployed 4,000 National Guard troops and 700 Marines to Los Angeles. The 1878 law prohibits the president from using the military as a domestic police force without approval from Congress. U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer issued an order prohibiting troops from engaging in security patrols, riot control, arrests, searches, and crowd control. However, the order does not take effect until September 12th to allow the Trump administration to appeal. The troops were mobilized in LA in June following days of unrest and protests against the federal immigration crackdown. China is set to host a major military parade in Beijing on Wednesday, marking 80 years since Japan's defeat at the end of the Second World War. More than 20 world leaders are expected to attend. Our Leila Rahimli brings all the details from Beijing.
Good evening from Beijing. China is preparing to stage its largest ever military display, marking 80 years since the end of World War II and defeat of fascism. The event will begin at 9 a.m. in Tiananmen Square. President Xi Jinping will deliver a speech, review the troops, and welcome dozens of world leaders. When it comes to attendance, 26 foreign leaders are confirmed. Among them, Russian President Vladimir Putin, North Korea's Kim Jong-un, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, and Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko. From South and Central Asia, leaders from Pakistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan are all here. And from Europe, Slovakia's Robert Fico and Serbia's Alexander Vučić. Adding to that list, today, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev and First Lady Mehriban Aliyeva arrived in Beijing from Tianjin, underscoring Baku's participation in both the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meetings and the commemorations here in capital. But perhaps most significant are meetings taking place behind the scenes. On Tuesday, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin signed more than 20 cooperation agreements, including a landmark 30 years natural gas pipeline deal between Gazprom and China's national energy company, as well as an agreement to introduce visa-free travel between Russia and China. Just hours later, Chinese president convened an unprecedented trilateral meeting with Putin and Kim Jong-un, bringing together three leaders increasingly at odds with the West. While details of their discussions were not made public, Chinese state media said talks covered energy, security, and regional stability, a rare joint appearance that experts see as a direct challenge to Western influence in Asia and beyond. So tomorrow, as the sounds and troops march through Tiananmen Square, the parade will feature 45 troops contingents, hundreds of aircraft and advanced weapon systems. And that's all for now. It's Leila Rahimli and Elbrus Musayev for A News.
Still with China, where 80 years ago this month, Soviet forces launched their final campaign of the Second World War, the Manchurian strategic offensive against Japan. Azerbaijani soldiers were among those who took part in the decisive push in northeast China.
Throughout the Second World War, Azerbaijan contributed both on the front lines and from behind the lines. Its oil-powered Soviet tanks, aircraft and artillery, while around 700,000 Azerbaijanis were mobilized to fight. By August 1945, the Soviet Union turned its attention east. More than 40,000 Azerbaijani soldiers were sent to the Far Eastern and Transbaikal fronts to take part in the Manchurian strategic offensive, aimed at defeating Japan's Kwantung Army and securing northeast China. The campaign was swift and decisive. Soviet forces captured key cities, including Harbin, Mukden, and Changchun, in less than 3 weeks. Azerbaijani soldiers were among those advancing on the front lines. Battalion Commander Haji Mamadov received the Order of the Red Banner for his role in Harbin, while Lieutenant Colonel Timur Aliyev led troops through the Khingan Mountains. Sergeant Kafar Sattarov, already a veteran of battles in Europe, marched with the Transbaikal front from Mongolia into Manchuria. Others contributed behind the lines. Captain Kiazim Sadiqzadeh organized critical infrastructure repairs to support the advance, while medical officers such as Shura Alizadeh and Gadamsak Sadikov treated soldiers under difficult conditions. Women were also part of the effort. Junior Sergeant Tezakanim Azimzadeh manned anti-aircraft defenses along railway lines, and Nurse Mulaim Jafarova served alongside troops on the Far Eastern Front after earlier wartime service in Europe. For some Azerbaijani officers, the war stretched across 2 continents. Lieutenant Colonel Abu Muslim Bakshiev fought from Kiev to Vienna before joining the 416th Division in the final offensive across northern China, ending his campaign in Dalian. The Manchurian strategic offensive was brief, but crucial. It destroyed Japan's last major field army and helped bring the Second World War to a close. For Azerbaijan, it marked the final stage of a wartime contribution that spanned Europe and Asia, from the oil fields of Baku to the battlefields of northeast China.
Iran, China and Russia rejected the call of European countries to reimpose UN sanctions on Tehran over its nuclear program. In a joint letter to the UN Security Council, they said the move by Britain, France and Germany was legally flawed. Our Turan Shiralilu has the details in Tehran.
The Chinese and Russian foreign ministers joined their Iranian counterpart to express their disapproval with a letter of the European powers sent to the UN Security Council demanding reimposition of Iran's nuclear sanctions. In a joint three-page letter signed in Tianjin, China, where they met on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit, they rejected the move by the European Troika as void of legal basis. According to the Iranian Foreign Ministry, they stressed that the letter submitted by the E3 to the Security Council is contrary to the procedures set out in the 2015 Iran Nuclear Agreement, JCPOA, and the UN Resolution 2231 and must be considered null and void. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, in a post on his X account, wrote that the letter reflects the firm position that the Europeans' attempt to invoke the snapback mechanism is legally baseless and politically destructive. Araghchi added that it was the United States that first violated the JCPOA and Resolution 2231, and it was Europe that chose to align with the unlawful sanctions instead of honoring its own commitments. Last week, the European powers, which are signatories of the JCPOA, in a letter to the UN Security Council, called for reactivation of the nuclear sanctions that were blocked by Resolution 2231 if they did not reach an agreement with Iran in September. China and Russia, which are permanent members of the Security Council and are also parties to the JCPOA, have proposed a draft resolution suggesting extension of the Resolution 2231 that expires in October and called for exemption of sanctions for a limited period in order to reach an agreement in the meantime. Turaj Shiralilu, reporting for A News TV, Tehran.
The death toll following the deadly earthquake in eastern Afghanistan has exceeded 1,400. Thousands more are injured and entire villages wiped out. Here's how survivors and officials are describing the disaster.
The aftermath of one of Afghanistan's deadliest earthquakes in recent years is grim. Entire villages in Kunar province have been flattened. Families are mourning hundreds of lost lives, while thousands of the injured overwhelm local hospitals.
The earthquake struck the districts of Nurgul, Soki, Watapur, Manogi, and Chapadara, and other areas in Kunar province. One thing I need to clarify is that our rescue teams have reached the Mazadara area of the Nurgul district, but have yet to share the latest update. The Afghan government's teams have reached the areas affected by last night's earthquake, but NGO teams are making their plans first and then dispatching their teams to such places. However, it will take some time.
Aminullah Sharif, head of Nangarhar's medical services, described the difficult journey to reach survivors.
When I learned about this disaster that struck our people, I prepared 4 to 5 ambulances and moved toward the affected area. We traveled during the night and arrived here at early morning prayer time after walking for 5 to 6 hours. Currently, 4 to 5 helicopters have carried the injured, and the evacuation is still ongoing. This is a major disaster. Many houses have been destroyed, and a lot of support is needed to rescue people from under the rubble.
Locals of Kunar's Nurgul region said that the tremor felt strong when it hit their village. They are calling for global support to people in the affected regions.
We evacuated around 200 injured people to Jalalabad's hospital by helicopter, and about 300 to 350 people are still under the rubble. All of our houses have been completely destroyed. We are thankful and grateful to our government's officials for visiting the area and providing urgent support in a timely manner, but we are asking the international community for further aid.
Rescue operations continue in remote mountain districts, where families are still searching for survivors under the rubble and waiting for urgent help to arrive.
A new 5.5 magnitude earthquake struck the southeast of Afghanistan, as condolences and aid continue to pour into the country following the deadly quake that hit on Sunday. Our Tamim Bahiz brings more on the international response to the disaster.
According to the World Health Organization, an estimated 12,000 people have been affected by the powerful quake that struck Kunar and Nangarhar provinces. WHO says it was among the first responders delivering emergency health kits to hospitals treating the wounded. Azerbaijan was among the first to react. In a statement, the Azerbaijani Foreign Ministry said, "We extend our heartfelt condolences to the families of the victims and wish a speedy recovery to all those injured. Our thoughts and prayers are with the people of Afghanistan during this difficult time." Leaders from across the region and beyond have also voiced their sympathy. India has pledged to send tents and food supplies, while Iran and Pakistan announced readiness to provide humanitarian aid. Turkey, Japan and Qatar expressed solidarity with the United Nations and European Union, promising to spare no effort in helping those in need. The United Arab Emirates has already deployed a rescue team with food, medicine and shelter tents. The United Kingdom pledged £1 million in aid. Other countries including Canada, Bangladesh, Indonesia and Syria have also sent condolences and pledged support. Inside Afghanistan, authorities say the armed forces have been ordered to use all available resources in the rescue operation, while the Foreign Ministry is coordinating with international partners to accelerate humanitarian assistance. This is Tamim Bahiz in Kabul for A News.
Heavy rains have triggered devastating floods across northern India, submerging villages, destroying farmland and forcing evacuations. In Punjab, rescuers are moving people and livestock to safety, while in New Delhi, the Yamuna River has overflowed, flooding residential areas.
Severe monsoon rains have left parts of northern India underwater, flooding farmland in Punjab and forcing evacuations in New Delhi. Locals say they've lost homes and crops, while shelters in the capital are overflowing.
We hope that the government helps us so that at least we can build our house.
Rescue efforts are underway as teams work around the clock to try and evacuate those trapped.
The water has receded about 2 feet today. People are being rescued on vehicles and brought here. Rations were being supplied to them through boats.
In New Delhi, the Yamuna River breached its embankments, flooding residential areas and forcing families into crowded relief camps. But conditions aren't great, and thousands have been left displaced.
There is no space in the shelter tents. Almost 1,500 people are staying there, and all our belongings are inside our houses, so there's fear of theft as well.
Drone footage captured the scale of devastation. Entire communities remain submerged, with shelters overcrowded and farmland destroyed. Thousands of families now face uncertainty. Authorities have issued fresh warnings of more heavy rain in Punjab in the days ahead. For villagers who have now lost both their homes and their harvests, the focus shifts now to rebuilding.
Turkey has welcomed the dissolvement of the OSCE Minsk Group and its related structures, describing it as an important step in advancing peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia. In an official statement, the Foreign Ministry said the decision marks a significant stage in the peace process between the two neighboring countries. Ankara emphasized that the closure of the outdated structure underscores the progress made on the ground and reflects the reality of the new regional order shaped after the restoration of Azerbaijan's territorial integrity. With the OSCE Minsk Group now formally dissolved and South Caucasus countries making strategic partnerships in Asia on what might come next for the region, we're talking with political analyst Boris Navasardian joining us from Yerevan. Welcome, thank you so much for being with us. Now let's start with the Minsk Group. The joint appeal by Baku and Yerevan to dissolve it was not opposed by any of the OSCE countries. How much of a momentum would you say this latest development brings when it comes to not only the ongoing peace process, but even broader regional relations?
First of all, I have to say that we witnessed support from the international community, including European countries, of the agreements achieved in Washington in August the 8th. And I think this was logical step by OSCE member countries to satisfy the appeal of Armenia and Azerbaijan to dissolute Minsk group, which in fact, even before the 44 days war, was implementing rather than advisory function than making any serious influence on the process between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And it was like symbolizing the international participation in the resolution of the conflict. So after Yerevan and Baku managed to establish a bilateral format for the negotiations, such mediator was not needed more. And if any countries wish to support the peace process, they can be engaged by supporting it through different means. And we saw how USA managed to do that. So in the current situation, I guess any symbols like Minsk group were not more in need. And that is why the decision was made without any problems.
You've touched upon the August meeting in the White House. There was the agreement on the Zangezur corridor, a number of bilateral meetings between Azerbaijan's president and Armenia's prime minister. All these steps have been broadly welcomed globally. How are they seen in Armenia's general public?
First of all, I already mentioned in your air that using the terms that are not official more, I mean, Zangezur corridor makes quite, I would say, disappointment among part of Armenian public. So better to use the terms that are officially adopted, approved by both sides and United States. So a trip or Trump's route for peace and prosperity, I think, is better term to be used also in TV programs. I personally have no problem with neither Zangezur or corridor, but we have to take into account feelings of other people as well, who are sometimes also manipulated with different propaganda tools when we move away from the the answer on the first question, I have to say that there is a strong international interest in developing communications in transport communications in our region, and the blocking the roads that are very important for international trade. And that is why the agreements achieved in Washington, in the White House, are very important. Now we are in the stage when more details have to be decided about the agreements because every small things could influence the effectiveness of the process. And I hope that further negotiations in different formats, Armenian American, Armenian Azerbaijan, Azerbaijan American, could bring good results. But it's Yerevan and Baku who are, first of all, responsible that these results are as fast as possible, because we are in the situation of window of opportunities, and this window is not endlessly open. So we have to catch the moment and move, as I mentioned, fastly in the process.
Well, when it comes to opportunities, just recently we've seen Pashinyan meeting China's Xi Jinping, and news coming out after that meeting that the countries are establishing a strategic partnership. How significant would you say that is, and what does it signal?
Armenia is, in fact, the last South Caucasus country that established strategic relations with a strategic partnership with China. Georgia and Azerbaijan did it earlier. So now we can say that China is interested in strategic engagement in our region in general, and all the plans of building and restoring transport communications and establishing trade relations, economic cooperation, cooperation in the field of energy and high technologies. All these opportunities are open now, and any country that wants to make a contribution to this process, be it United States, European countries, or China, are welcome to do it.
Boris, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights and opinions.
Thank you for the invite.
Georgia was absent from the recent Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit held in China, but Georgian officials insist their partnership with Beijing remains strong. For more on that, we go to Tbilisi and our Nini Nikolaishvili.
As leaders from across the region gathered in China for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit, Georgia was notably absent. Neighboring countries like Azerbaijan and Armenia used the platform to upgrade their partnerships with major global powers, while Georgia, despite holding the status of an official strategic partner of Beijing, remains on the sidelines. Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze responded to questions about this absence, stressing that the parade in China was part of the SCO framework and that attendance should not be overinterpreted. He underlined that cooperation with Beijing is a priority, calling the China-Georgia strategic partnership precious and important, and promising new steps to strengthen it politically and economically. But China is only one side of Georgia's global partnership web. On the other side lies the United States, where relations have cooled in recent years. Echoing the president's appeal, Kobakhidze voiced the government's desire to restart ties with Washington from a clean slate, presenting a roadmap for renewed cooperation. He noted that the lack of attention from the Trump administration was surprising, suggesting it may reflect the influence of what he called the deep state. Still, he insisted that if this influence does not prevail, nothing would prevent the revival of the strategic partnership. It's also worth noting that this appeal comes against the backdrop of Georgia's two neighbors in the South Caucasus, Azerbaijan and Armenia, having taken steps to upgrade their respective relations with the United States. On August 8, Azerbaijan and the United States signed a memorandum of understanding aimed at developing a strategic partnership charter, while Armenia concluded new agreements that build upon existing bilateral arrangements. The picture that emerges is a Georgia caught between two global poles, seeking to protect its bond with China while struggling to reanimate its once vital alliance with the United States. In the meantime, as regional neighbors deepen their own ties with great powers, Tbilisi faces growing questions over whether this pause in partnerships leaves the country isolated and how that isolation could shape both its foreign policy and domestic political debates. It's Nini Nikolaishvili reporting from Tbilisi, A News.
Beijing hosted the 8th Kazakhstan-China Business Council meeting. More than 70 agreements and contracts were signed. And for the details, we go to Almaty and our Fariza Kalimurzina.
Kazakhstan and China have signed more than 70 agreements and contracts valued at over $15 billion during the Kazakhstan-China Business Council held in Beijing. The event brought together over 500 participants, including representatives from leading corporations of both countries. China has already invested over $27 billion in Kazakhstan's economy. More than 6,000 companies with Chinese capital operate in Kazakhstan. Cooperation spans energy, transport, agriculture, industry and innovation. A key project is the construction of Alatau City in partnership with China State Construction Engineering Corporation, covering 88,000 hectares. The city is set to become a new hub for technological innovation and the digital economy. In industry, Sinopec is investing $7.4 billion in a polyethylene production plant in the Atyrau region. Also, CNPC is involved in modernizing the Shymkent refinery, while China Huadian is building a 160 megawatt combined cycle power plant in Mangostau. Several joint projects are also underway in rare earth metal processing, glass production, car assembly and electric buses, all involving Chinese companies. Kazakhstan is strengthening its role as a key transit hub between China and Europe. Around 85% of overland cargo traffic under the Belt and Road Initiative passes through the country. And last year, freight volumes on the Trans-Caspian route increased by 62%. The introduction of double tracks on the Dostok-Mo intersection, President Tokayev says, will boost the corridor's capacity fivefold. While the financial figures are strong and projects ambitious, experts say the challenge lies in balancing economic growth with Kazakhstan's strategic independence, requiring careful decisions and clear cooperation frameworks. From Almaty, Kazakhstan, Fariza Kalimurzina, A News.
And finally, we go to Turkey, where the tourism sector is breaking records. Our Aliya Aziz has all the numbers in Istanbul.
Turkey is setting new records in tourism after transforming the sector into one of the fastest growing and most resilient parts of its economy. Over the past 2 decades, the country has invested in education, health, transport, infrastructure, defense, and tourism. Since 2018, tourism ranks among Turkey's top export sectors. This came with the creation of the Turkey Tourism Promotion and Development Agency, working with airlines like Turkish Airlines, Turkey's travel campaign Go Turkey. The agency launched global campaigns in more than 200 countries, dramatically expanding demand. Visitor numbers surged from 38 million in 2017 to more than 62 million in 2024, making this a historic record. Turkey is offering more than 60 experiences, from the traditional cuisine and health tourism to sports, archaeology, cruises, and cultural festivals. Tourism has now spread across all 81 provinces in the country. Culinary tourism has been a standout, with Istanbul, Izmir, Bodrum, Muğla, and Cappadocia all earning a place in the prestigious Michelin Guide. And by linking tourism with Turkey's vast cultural heritage, the country has created a hybrid model that blends high-tech innovation with tradition. Officials say this is just the beginning, with Turkey's tourism sector expected to break new records for the future. For A News, this is Aliya Aziz, Istanbul, Turkey.
Well, that's all we have for you for now. Thank you so much for watching and stay tuned to A News.